I have in my hands the most important piece of paper in the whole world for myself. Can you guess what it is? What do you think it might be? The most important piece of paper in the whole world. Okay, this is my adoption paper. My adoption paper. You might say, Father Richard, there's no chance you were adopted. You look exactly like your dad. But it's true, this is my adoption paper. It actually says here, Richard Thomas Conlin was baptized on February 21st, 1988 in the Church of St. Joseph the Worker, Richmond, BC. And I use this word adoption in a very intentional way, of course. We heard it in today's second reading. Now, when we think of the word adoption, it's kind of got a stigma to it still in our culture. You know, like when I grew up, we got two brothers here. Like when I was trying to be mean to my brother, I'm like, you're adopted. And that's trying to say like, you don't really belong to the family. Or even in our culture today, like we see adoption as almost like a last-ditch effort sometimes for couples that aren't able to conceive. And so it's really seen for many people in a negative way. But St. Paul is writing to the Romans in the first century. And when people heard the word adopted, it was the best term ever. Okay, so for St. Paul, in the first century, what would happen in ancient Rome is that when a child was born, the child did not really belong to the family yet. The parents had full legal rights to disown the child. So if the child was born and the child had a birth defect or was the wrong sex or anything, the parents could simply disown the child. Now, there was a very expensive legal procedure in ancient Rome called adoption. And it was usually reserved for the highest ranking Roman families. And it was for a specific reason. If a very wealthy family wanted to make sure that their money and their family succession, their name, their heritage would continue, and they didn't have a male heir to the family, they would go through this very expensive legal procedure called adoption. And so for the child that would be chosen to be adopted, this was like the greatest news ever. You hit the jackpot if in ancient Rome, first century, you were adopted. Because that means that your new parents just went through a very, very expensive legal procedure and chose you. And when you're chosen in ancient Rome, you get a new name, you become part of a new family, you get full access to all that the family has, like 100% immediately. Inheritance is immediate for that child. And so your life has radically changed when you're adopted in ancient Rome. St. Paul writing to the Romans, they would have remembered that some 50 years previously to that letter being written, the great Caesar Augustus was adopted by Julius Caesar. And that was like an amazing thing. So they would have been so jealous that, wow, like to be adopted, you are so special. And so St. Paul, when he's writing to the Romans, explaining what's happening in baptism, in today's second reading, he uses the word adoption. He says, you received a spirit of adoption to sonship. When we cry, Abba, Father, it is the very Spirit bearing witness with our spirit that we are children of God. And if children, then heirs, joint heirs with Christ. So St. Paul is so intentional about using this word adoption to explain what happened to us. And so you could just imagine when someone was adopted back then, they were probably given these legal documents. So maybe Caesar Augustus, when he was chosen, he would have had a document like this and says, you know, here it is. Here's the most important piece of paper in the whole world. So what happened when I was adopted by God, it was on February 21st. And the hour before that baptism, I was a spiritual orphan, born into this broken world with original sin. I had no real family, no real spiritual family. I was all alone. That's the reality that we're all born into. So February 20th, got nothing, all alone. But on February 21st, I was baptized, as we heard in the gospel, in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And everything changed. Just as we heard about, how expensive it was for someone to adopt someone in ancient Rome, think of the price that God the Father paid for each one of us, the blood of his own Son. The extent to which God the Father went to bring us into his family, to adopt us into his family, was extravagant. And so he allowed us to enter into his very family through baptism. And that means that when I hold up this paper, I know for absolute certain that God chose me. There's no doubt. My name is right here, and I can show it to everyone. Say, look, God chose me. I belong to God's family. There's no doubt. I don't have to think about who I am. I don't have to look on social media to discover my identity. My deepest identity is right here. I am a part of God's family. And on this Trinity Sunday, we get to think about God's family. God is a family. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It is the perfect family. And we get to enter into that very family when we are baptized. And so when I look at this baptismal certificate, I can truly say, here's the most important document in the whole world. And I should be able to say it with a good pride and a good honor. Like, just imagine back then in ancient Rome, if someone realized they were adopted, they would have walked around with a swag. Like, they would have been like, I am something special. I have been chosen by a great family, and my life has changed. You just think they have a bad day, they have a bad sleep, and then they're like, look at the document, and they're like, oh yeah, I was chosen. I'm pretty cool. Like, someone thought that I was worth bringing into a very wealthy, prestigious family. And so when I'm having a bad day now, I got my mom to give me this document this week. And I'm like, I've been looking at it throughout the week. And if you have a bad day or something's going wrong, you could just look at the document and be like, oh yeah, God brought me into his family. God chose me. My name is right here. And this can be a constant sign just for us to remember of what happened. For me, February 21st, 1988. Who here knows the day they were baptized? How many people know? I know. I got it right here. Okay, so I have a challenge for everyone, okay? So when you go home, you find your baptismal certificate, okay? Okay, that's the first challenge. You go searching for it. And there's a couple of kids here that will really like my next couple of ideas, okay? Okay, you mark it in your calendar. So you put it permanently in your calendar, for me, February 21st, and then you throw a party. If there's any reason to have a party, it's this. This is my real birthday when I entered into God's family. And especially contact your godparents and tell them that Father Richard said they have to buy you a present on your baptismal day, okay? And then on that day, you can show everyone. Say, here's the most important document in the whole world. I was chosen to be a part of God's family. I am God's beloved son. So good. I'm a friend of Jesus Christ. He purchased this document with his blood for me. I'm a temple of the Holy Spirit. God's Spirit lives in me. And if you want something to celebrate, that's pretty high up there on the list. So there's my challenge for you. I think it's something we can all do, and we need reasons to celebrate these days. And maybe some of you might have a birthday coming up soon, spiritual birthday, your baptism day. You can throw a party, and maybe if COVID allows, you could invite me to celebrate with you, okay?